Hi, Namaste, Rishi.
Yes, namaste, Mary. I'm just reading your note.
I,
I went to the,
I wrote it. It's so long. I wrote it early, and it's so very much with what you're saying, talking about today. So, but I'm just sending it just to leave it with you.
so what does it say? I'm not really able to see all of it.
Okay, so
I've lost the top portion of it, I think.
yes, it's long. That's why probably. But
Okay, let me move this back up. You can just talk to me if you want.
well, you actually answered my question earlier today.
Ah,
Thank
good,
you.
good.
No, but I just want to share it and leave it with you, kind of. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
I release it. But I've had the same struggle. I've been kind of surrendering expectation from my meditation time, from my inquiry time. And I'm a little concerned that the mind might be getting lazy at the same time as
So let me ask you, what's happening then in that moment? What are you experiencing in that moment where you think maybe you might be getting a little bit lazy? What is the state of the mind?
well, there's quite a bit of chatter going on. It's like I spend a lot of time sitting in quiet. I've surrendered. I'm trying to surrender, not to expect it to be anyway. Just allowing whatever comes.
And
But
what
then
is
I
coming
notice
is
that,
chatter?
but there's a lot of chatter coming. Yeah. There's a lot of chatter coming. So then
Yeah, so this is the perfect field for the inquiry because the question then becomes possible when there's a lot of chatter in the mind. What's also there is energy. The reason I asked you what the state was is because if the state is a laya state or a state of torpor, um, then you need to find a way to pick the energy up. But if there's a lot of chatter going on in the mind, the energy's already there. So that's the different remedy. When there's a lot of chatter there, then if you understand that is energy in the mind, then do the inquiry. What is aware of this chatter? Because if you don't, as you've already noticed, the chatter can have a tendency to take you away, and then you will fall into you'll become discouraged and so on. You'll find a way to try to stop that from happening, suppression, repression, and so on, because it's uncomfortable. That's being carried away by the object, which in this case is chatter. So this is the moment to insert the inquiry. What is aware? If you can just do that, don't even say what is aware of chatter unless you need to pull the attention back from it. If you can just say what is aware of this, then you objectify the chatter. It's not personal, it's not subjective. What is aware of this? If you need to say what is aware of chatter, go ahead, but do understand that even to say that something is going on in the mind and to label it as chatter, this is a judgment. Mm-hmm. So there is still an I, which has some vested interest in what's happening in the mind. It likes or doesn't like it. In this case, it doesn't like it. But if you say, what is aware of this? Now this pushes the subjectiveness of the object away a little bit, and you can return to the source more directly. What is aware? Now the attention is coming away from this chattery quality of the mind. And in fact, it's using the energy of that chatter, directing it back toward the source.
And that's always coming back to that question. And that was as I was writing this to you, that's the also the clarity of that at the end.
Mm-hmm. And then I see you said, just sit to enjoy this time with whatever comes. So understand again in the way, again, this is just the way you've languaged it. I don't know if this is the experience. You can tell me. Just sit to enjoy this time with whatever comes. The instruction, if you will, is the just sit. As soon as the mind goes and adds on to that, to enjoy this time, do you realize how that sets up the opportunity to fail, which is not a bad thing, but it sets up the opportunity to fail, because just sit to enjoy this time then becomes disturbed by the chattery mind. So the suggestion is to stay with the first part of your own internal instruction, just sit. Just sit. Anytime something comes or goes, notice that which is aware of the coming and going. If there's no expectation for enjoyment, there doesn't need to be a getting rid of when something seems to interfere with the inspection that my meditation should be enjoyable. Why should your meditation be enjoyable?
It's
You
not
see
about
this?
that.
Yeah. The moment is what the moment is. So the instruction is just sit. When something rises in that sitting space, you can say, the space of awareness, you can notice it, but more importantly, you can inquire, what is aware of this which is in the space of awareness? This can help you a lot, because you can begin to see that the awareness, which is the underpinning or the foundation of all the phenomenon, is that which is always here prior to whatever the object is, whether it's enjoyable or it's not. The awareness is here. And when this fascination, if you will, with awareness itself becomes very strong, then it becomes very stable. And the phenomenon are able to flow through that. So this is like sitting on the bank of a river and watching the river flow and seeing the bubbles and seeing the sticks and seeing the leaves, and leaves are flowing down. Everything is going on the surface of the river, but the watcher is still like this. Yes, of course, letting go of spiritual expectations. That's what I'm referring to. So you have a deep wisdom already, Marie. You just need to follow it. You need to trust it. I'm just here to validate your own wisdom. So then it goes on. Yet at the same time, there is this bothersome avalanche of thoughts. Again, be careful of this kind of judgment. There may in fact be what appears to be an avalanche of thoughts. But again, who is watching this? Who is aware of this? And to say there is an avalanche of thoughts, this may be the truth of what is being witnessed at that moment. To say this is a bothersome avalanche of thoughts is to bring in that tendency in the mind to judge. This in a way takes an entanglement, the avalanche of thoughts, takes an entanglement and ties it, pulls even tighter on the knot when you say this is a bothersome avalanche. Now, along with the phenomenon being present, there is a judgment which is happening in the mind. So this strengthens the phenomenon in the mind. But by saying or recognizing Even if you use the word bothersome, this is a bothersome avalanche of thoughts. Following that with, what is aware of this? And coming back to that, or looking for that. What is aware of this bothersome avalanche of thoughts? Now you begin to loosen that knot of conditioning. And you're absolutely right. It's your following statement. I'm reading this for those of you who don't have this on your screen, which seems to contradict the feeling of naturalness I mentioned. Yes. But again, understand that your natural state, sahaja, is that state of peace, silence, and calm, freedom. This is your natural state. But this natural state, until you have recognized this as the foundation of your being and become very firm in it, these disturbances are still going to rise on the surface of the mind. It's important, though you may notice, I'm no longer in this naturalness of being, not to feel as though you are doing something wrong or as though something is out of control. It's simply to notice naturalness of being is not here now. Who says this? You see, the direction is always away from the object. Whether the object says, oh, I love this, or it says, oh, I don't want this, or I'm out of my natural state of being, this is not relevant to inquiry. Mind can say whatever it likes. What is aware of what is speaking? This is always the inquiry. And yes, you said something, I just went past that. Maybe this relaxation makes it more clear to see what's going on in the mind. Yes, absolutely. This is why we do the inquiry, because it brings us back to this natural inner state of peace and calm and freedom. And in this state, it's much easier to see the way in which the conditioning unfolds and the ways in which we react to it. It's much easier to see it in that state. But what do we do when we don't start out in that state? Or we start out in that state and we lose it? That's what we're talking about now. We know that natural state of freedom, of peacefulness and calm, this is our nature. So the question isn't, what does it prove that I've lost my natural state? That's not the question. The question is, how do we come back to it through the use of inquiry? I'm trying to let this expectation of quieter mind go. So, in this statement, the difficulty for you is in the statement, I am trying. The reason this is the difficulty is before you can say trying, you must grab on to this sense of me-ness. Because in this case, I am is not the I am of space and wholeness. This is the I am of the ego speaking. Me, I want something. I want to let this, I want this expectation. How do you say it? I want to let this expectation of quieter mind go. In order for that expectation to be there, you must have already grabbed this sense of me-ness. So this sense, as I said earlier, of separation. This I is based in I and you, me and that. This and an object. It's based in that assumption. But this is an illusory assumption. So in this case, This is the direct application of the question, who am I? Because if you say, I am trying to let this expectation of quieter mind go, the correct response in inquiry, if you will, is who am I? Who is this I I'm referring to in this statement? You see? Discover, does this I, which is the egoic I, or the me-ness of our experience, does this I actually exist? Then you can forget the whole rest of the statement. It will just drift away. It won't be interesting because your attention will be on discovering who is this I that I'm referring to. And that is being disturbed by what seems to be going on in the mind. Understand that's underneath that. But we don't want to look at that disturbance. We want to look at this false assumption of me-ness. Beautiful, huh? And then the next statement, which is, but it is hard not to be bothered by it. This is burnt up. This is the wood, right? This is the wood in the fire. This being hard not to be bothered by it. This is the flame, the fire that's raging. The who am I referring to? This is the stick, which you're turning the fire with until that fire burns down. So you stay with the inquiry. Who is this I? Every time this I wants to rise and say, oh, well, this can't possibly work, or this isn't the way, or I'm not doing this right, or just keep going. Who is this I am referring to in this whole way of thinking? It's based on a false assumption that there is a me, a personal, in this vast impersonal space of freedom and love. You see, in the self, there's nothing but vast, eternal space. Freedom, love, kindness, joy. This is the freedom of the self. So when this I, which says I'm trying to get this expectation of quieter mind to go, but it's hard not to be bothered by it, this is what is being burned up. This is not what you are. This is what is being burned up in the fire of inquiry, this false I. So you do this by asking this question, who is this I that I'm referring to? When I speak to myself in this way, I am speaking to the false self, not to the truth. So, yes. So in a way, you've answered your own query at the end of this. This is beautiful. Yes, it is about the one that knows this, that knows what is going on in the mind. Very good. Not about the one who is or is not quiet. Lovely.
Such freedom that comes with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Accept this as your nature. No matter what appears on the screen of awareness, your nature is freedom. Risha, you said the inevitability, in quotes, of presence is comforting. To whom? To little Risha and her stick. Okay. Yes. So now, my dear, uproot this whole notion of little Risha. You see, my friends, there is only the self. This appearance, this screen on Zoom is quite good for this. This screen makes it appear as though there are, however many of us there are, a dozen at this moment or more. It makes us appear, even this makes this appear as though this is the reality, that there are 12 or 15 or 7 billion individual beings, all of whom are encapsulated in this little body mind. But this is just an appearance in the mind. To come to know yourself as truth and freedom is to know that all of you are myself, that this one is all of you, that this belief in separation, in me and you, is false. And not to know this as a concept, but to keep asking the question, who or what is aware here? Until this belief that there is me and you dissolves. You cannot force this to happen. You can just keep asking the question, who is this I that is always being referred to by the mind? Or what is aware here, appearing as a mind and a body? By doing this, this apparent two-ness, the gap that is between this one and that one, narrows until it resolves itself in the true understanding that there are not two. There is only this. Only this.